You're welcome along to the Maroon and White pod. It is well and truly knockout stages this weekend in the Galway Senior and Intermediate Club Hurling Championships, and as well as the Senior B as well. And I am joined by former Galway Senior Hurling selector Kevin Lally to look ahead to this weekend's action. Kevin, firstly, have you been getting around to many games throughout the club championship so far?
Yeah, thankfully, yeah, I've getting to a good few games. Yeah, I suppose obviously finished up with Galway, so yeah, I've been enjoyed going around to games, and yeah, I've taken in a load of games to be honest with you. Yeah,
Just on it this weekend, there's no point in saying otherwise. The tie of the weekend this weekend, repeat of last year's county final, Turlock and Thomas's.
yeah, sure. I think it was probably written in the stars, wasn't it? I think at the minute Thomas didn't top the group, I think the stars are always going to align. Yeah, look at it. It's probably the draw. Every Galway hurling supporter was probably looking for. Not sure where Turlock looking for it or Thomas is looking for it, but I think everybody else was probably looking for it. Look, it's an intriguing tie. They've known each other obviously for the last number of years, not just last year, but the last number of years. And they've always been tight games. Let's be honest, they've always been tight games. And I suppose looking ahead, like I suppose Turlock on the back of like a brilliant under 20 success. Like I was very impressed with them even in the final. I thought they were super. And then obviously their intermediates going well. They will come obviously come very confident to take on Thomas's. Yeah.
Just before we get in and look at the quarterfinals, overall so far, what have you made of the championship?
Yeah, I think it's been decent to be honest with you. I think that the preliminaries, yeah, it's just hard to put your finger on it. Like the teams that finished third, I suppose it's probably been well spoken about where they finished up. Like I think like the preliminary quarterfinals, I think the average winning total was something like 14 points, like which is
Yeah, if you add the
just
margins together, I think it was 46 points.
yeah. So like it's 14 points. Like it really is hard to believe. Like, but like is that the way our clubs are going? Is it are we seeing more levels? Are we seeing top 16, top 12, top 8, top 4? It certainly looks like that if you're gauging it by the results. But yeah, no, it has been a good club campaign up to now. I will say that. But yeah, I suppose that the downside was, when you look at the preliminary quarterfinals, some of the margins of victories, like 13 points, 18 points, 15 points, 11 points, like um, they're convincing victories. They really are. Like so, yeah. But I think on the whole, up to there, I think it has been decent. Yeah,
Just on that, do you think it's time to get rid of the prelims?
I definitely think it's time for a discussion on it for starters because I think in the last couple of years, I'm not sure there's any team bar one that got out of it, but yeah, I think it's definitely time for a discussion on it because I think you're obviously will be able to pull back your championship a couple of weeks as well, which would be brilliant for players and everybody, and underfoot conditions and pitches and the whole lot. But I think it's definitely something that should be reviewed for sure. Yeah, because let's be honest, the results don't lie, and they're big margin of victories. Yeah.
Yeah, and even with that, the 4-4 is probably is the perfect system. It's probably just really about kind of altering that.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think yeah, maybe top two eliminate the three, and then you're going to pull back the championship a couple of weeks. Yeah, for sure.
So if we do look at Thomas's and Turlock, it's a game obviously you experienced on the line yourself in 2020, but Thomas is so far. Even the last day, I was laughing watching the stream. There was big questions being asked of Thomas's, but one particular moment when they get that sideline and Niall Healy is, I suppose, reminding Aina something, and Aina's giving it back to him. It was just a great moment on Saturday.
It was, yeah. It was probably a funny moment, I'd say, but what a brilliant piece of skill, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Yes, I suppose it was a bit of crack at the time, but like for him to put down the ball and cut the ball over from 60 yards, like it's ridiculous skill, and I think we saw glimpses of the real Thomases in the second half. I will say that I think you saw them really at times. I'm sure there was questions asked at half time. It's tight enough first half, nip and tuck, but like again, they've come out, and I thought I liked what I saw in the second half. Yeah, I did. I liked what I saw from Thomas in the second half. I thought they used the ball well, and look, they ran out convincing winners, didn't they? And they'll be disappointed with the John Head sending off, but you saw a player who I really like and I really rate. I think you saw Oisin Flannery's form coming back. He probably, under his own admission, probably struggled a little bit this year at different stages, but he's such a class hurler, and like to see the scores he got in the second half. Yeah, that's a big plus. Trust me, that's a big plus. Yeah.
Even with Thomas's, we haven't seen many changes really from Lyle Ireland. The only one really has been Evan Brady coming in. But interesting with him, he started most of his games in the forwards. They moved him back to the backs the last day. Even with that, Thomas's, when they're not making many changes, but they're nearly switching players into different positions, it almost feels like new players, I suppose, when you do that.
It is, but again I was just looking at the amount of players. I think they might have used maybe 19 players, 18 up to the weekend. I think Darren Farrell comes on the weekend, so that's only 19 players. I think everybody else is probably used in the region of 22, 23. So obviously Thomas are going well in the Junior A Championship, and they're preparing for that. So they're county semi final on that the weekend. So that's probably a little bit of a distraction for them. But yeah, as you said, it probably shows the versatility of some of the players. Evan Brady went from full forward to wing back to cornerback. Evan Duggan has gone from cornerback to wing back to midfield. So I suppose the versatility in their players is brilliant, isn't it? And I suppose that's probably helping them a little bit, that they're probably not having to dip into the junior team as much. But yeah, you're right on Evan Brady. He's a new player that has come in, himself and Darren Farrell, and yeah, they've been very impressive in fairness to both of them. Yeah.
Where do you think they're? Obviously, everyone knows they're going for this number seven that they want to get, but where do you think they're? Obviously, like they've been on the road now for so long. Even the All Ireland last year, the players going to go like it's obviously going to take a bit out of them.
It is, of course it is, yeah, and they have been on the go a long time, but they're the champions, aren't they? Look, and the champions are the champions, until they're knocked out, and I think we have. I think there's probably a little narrative around the county that's been written off a little bit, and to be honest with you, I don't buy into it. I think even in the Gort game, like I don't think the goal that Damien McLean got, I thought it was the goal of the season. I just thought it was a brilliant goal, and for them to dig out a win or to dig out the draw, um, that got them through. Like, but it was a brilliant team goal, and we've seen it time and time again when they go to the well and when the need is greatest they're able to pull this out of the fire. And that's just obviously credit to them because firstly, they're brilliant hurlers and such a brilliant team. But just leading back to that goal, like you saw everything good about them. You saw Conor Cooney moving off to the wing forward position, striking a diagonal ball across the field. Aina Burke comes in. It's a beautiful weighted pass. I just thought it was a brilliant, brilliant goal to Damien McLean. And Damien McLean runs 50 yards hard to get on the end of it and sticks in the back of the net. So um, that to me is just epitomizes Thomas's and the good hurling that they can play. But to answer your question, yeah, I think Thomas's they're going probably by their own admission, they're probably going okay. But there's no doubt what they've produced up to now won't be good enough to beat Turlock, and they'll know that themselves. But I suppose they're just hoping they're going to find another gear or two the weekend.
On Turlock, is this the best Turlock team? Do you think we've seen over the last number of years coming into this one?
I certainly think it's the best panel of players to have. Yeah, I certainly think that. Yeah. Like I remember being at the under 20 final, like, and you're looking at players like Garroch Fahy, Owen Conneely, Tom Nolan. They'd probably be on a lot of senior teams if we're honest. Do you know what I mean? The three of them are really good on the night, and but yeah, in terms of their squad, like Mikey Morris is a player who like can't get his game now. Do you know what I mean? There's a few players like that that just can't get in, but just because obviously the standard of player that's ahead of them. But yeah, to answer your question, I think that the standard or the depth they've built in the squad, and that's probably gone over the last number of years, been in under 20 finals, going well in intermediate, etc. But they've a really, really good squad of players there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really shown, I suppose, when you're keeping a player like Matthew Terpy, who's with the
Yeah.
Galway under 20s out of the 15.
Yeah, 100%. And there's probably be a few more, as I said, the Mikey, like you see Killian Traer's going in this year. He looks like the manner born. Like he looks like a really good player. I worked with him a little bit in the minors back a few years back, and he looks like a real player. And again, he's developed physically, and I suppose it's probably kudos to the S&C coach down there, Hubert. He's done a brilliant job with them. I know they've put a massive emphasis on it down there the last couple of years, but to see the way the players have developed physically is a testament to him and the club down there. Yeah.
You talk about trades coming back in. Obviously, the obvious one is Sean Loftus too here.
100%. Yeah, I suppose he missed out a good chunk of last year. He's back playing well. Yeah, and I suppose just if you even jump on to matchups, who picks up Sean Loftus now all of a sudden? I suppose like it's who picks up probably the three Seans from the Turlock side. It's probably Sean O'Hanlon, Sean Allan, Sean Loftus. Does Keane Manny go to one? Does Finton go to one? Does Evan Duggan go to one of them? So that they're probably the three big ones for me straight away. And then the flip of that then is obviously does Dahi go to Connor? Does Dan Loftus go to Aina? So you're going to have intriguing matchups all over the field, and I suppose it's a question of both managements, and I suppose their stats and analysis people who's the key people and who do we really need to lock down here. And I suppose that's probably what both managements are presiding over all of this week, and who do we really need to lock down, and what happens if a player goes here? How do we counteract that? So that's going to be the interesting piece early doors in the game. Who goes to who, and who follows who, strictly around the field. So that's going to be very interesting early doors. Who the marquee guys are going to be, who's going to pick them up? Yeah,
And how would you see some of those matchups going?
yeah. Again, I was just probably just scribbling down a few like. Does Connor Cooney or does Dahi go to Connor Cooney? He probably does. Then probably match up at 6 and 11. Connor will probably spend a bit of time at 14. Does Dahi follow him? Possibly. Um, Ian Burke is obviously a guy that has given Turlock more endless trouble down the last number of years. So who goes to him? Who's going to try and I suppose lock him down as best they can? Um, that's probably going to be a difficult one. Who goes there for them? And then the flip of that is, I suppose, Sean and Ann's role. If he plays inside, does Finton pick him up? Does Keane pick him up? If Sean Loftus is inside, Finton or Keane, I presume one of them will pick them up. And then Sean O'Hanlon is probably the other one. There's loads more, don't get me wrong, but they're probably the few key ones for me. Who picks up them? Um, yeah, who picks up Oisin Flannery is probably another one as well. Um, but yeah, they're the key matchups. And again, I suppose if you can win as many of those matchups, sounds very basic and easy thing to say, but if you can win as many of those, you're probably going to go a long way in winning the game.
It's just so intriguing there, Kevin, when you're talking about it, because this is the game Turlock have waited for all winter, and this is the game Thomas has probably wanted because they know they have to rise it up a few levels now.
Yeah, it is. It's probably set up perfect for both, really, isn't it? And I suppose it's probably something we're probably going to talk about is how did the four clubs manage the 4 week break? Look, we've all heard the rumors that the challenge game circuit was busy, but like Thomas's would usually top the group and that so there's a little bit of that in there. Are you better off coming in playing a game? I think Thomas's are probably better off playing a game last weekend, if I'm honest. The taper into this week lovely, and you go straight into it. Whereas Turlock Moore, I presume, we're off the last 4 weeks. Took the first week probably the bones that off. Then the start, they're loading again and try and build it and build it and build it and try and peak this weekend. So we're probably we won't probably don't have the answers to that until next weekend. But what's the sweet spot like? Because it is, but even back in my time, it is tricky to fill that 4 week void because I know Galway teams have been scrabbling, going all over the country to Dublin, to Waterford, trying to play challenge matches. So it is, how true is the challenge match then? Whereas, albeit I know the preliminaries weren't brilliant up here, but guys were still road tested. You still got to spin out in Athenry. You still got to do all that. So that's going to be the interesting piece, and that's probably where the four managers that top the group. That's probably where the little bit of concern is where really are we at? Because they probably don't honestly don't know, because as much as probably as well as you're training, the proof is going to come out on Saturday or Sunday.
At the same time, Turlock, when they played Thomas's just have this edge over Turlock when it comes to knockout hurling.
Yeah, I suppose the last number of years they have the Indian sign over them a little bit. Yeah, yeah, and look, I suppose that's there until they do knock them out. You know what I mean? That's going to be there, and that's going to be hanging over them. And but yeah, Turlock will be happy. They blitz through the group. They're like the leading scorers in the championship. They scored, I think, 585 in the championship. It's a ridiculous score in the few games. Um, they've won by 23 points, 17 points, 12 points. I think there's a win in March. Like they're putting up big scores again. So they'll be of course they're going to be confident, absolutely going to be confident. So they'll be, but it just again it just makes for a brilliant game and a brilliant spectacle.
It is crazy to think that one of these teams is going to be out of the championship on Sunday evening, that their season's done, 2024 comes to an end. But how do you see this one going?
Um, um, uh, Look at it, it's very hard to call, and I'm probably going to give you the same answer for the four games. This is probably the hardest game to call, isn't it? Like, let's be honest. I don't think anybody can sit here and say uh, Team A or Team B are going to win. Um, I just like just to go back. I probably just like what I saw from Thomas's in the second half. Um, they're coming in, and I think they're coming in nicely in terms of having their game last weekend, and they just taper in lovely into this weekend. Yeah, so look, probably my heart probably says Thomas's might just get the job done. Yeah, but it's going to be close, and like, could you rule out a draw on this one? Definitely not, definitely not. But yeah, I just have a sneaky feeling that Thomas will get the job done.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a 50-50 game, this one. I'm just going to give the nod to Turlock on that one, just with the form at the minute. I think they might just squeeze through, and this is the one they've waited for, but this could come back to bite me. On the earlier one on Sunday as well in Kenny Park, Lockray, Castlegar, I suppose it's going to be interesting how many bodies do return for Lockray, because it's probably something every Lockray game we watch, we're intrigued to see who's going to be on the pitch and who's not.
Yeah, but I suppose they probably need to be given huge credit the way they've got through the group, like
Yeah,
because I was just jotting down a few players that they're missing. I'm going to leave out a few here, like Paul Hooban, Ushin Kyle, Dylan Shaughnessy, Jamie Ryan, Martin McManus. They've been all starters historically back the number of years. It's a third year team, like I'm
and
sure
it's
I'm
nearly
missing.
a spine of your team too.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm missing out a player or two there, and apologies if I am, but like, it's just it's remarkable how they've brought players through, and I suppose how other players have probably stepped up in their group as well. So I think massive credit must go to the Lockray management in that, because how they've maneuvered their way through the championship, and to be honest with you, I think the performance of the championship so far was probably Lockray versus Clarenbridge. I think that was the best team performance we saw of any side so far this year. I just thought they were exceptional on the same day. But yeah, but you're right to see the amount of bodies that they're missing, and I think, yeah, you're right in what you're saying. We're not quite sure. We don't know. We're not obviously not privy to what's going on in their camp and who they have and who they won't have. But huge testament must go to the management in their club to keep going through the group games, being down so many bodies.
One player you obviously worked with in Go, and he's really looked to drive things on this year in the club, is Tiernan Killeen, particularly that game against Clarenbridge. Like, he really looked hungry for ball, to run it, to score from distance. Just his all round game was really impressive.
It is, and you can throw in his free taking into that as well, because that's going to be obviously a massive part of this weekend's games. Like, if you look at all the standard of free taker that we have of all the A teams, it's going to be huge. But yeah, no, Tiernan was brilliant against Clarenbridge. I thought he really led the line well for them, and yeah, took his goal well, hit his frees. I thought he was really good. And it's great to see his brothers coming through there as well. Cullen getting game time, came and obviously going well. So yeah, I thought he showed massive leadership. I thought he was outstanding the same day. Yeah.
With that on the, I suppose, update, Dylan Shaughnessy has returned from Australia for Lockray, which is obviously a boost. It's hard to know where Paul Hubban and Jamie Ryan are. I know the word was that they were back running, but that's obviously a long way away from playing a game of hurling. So maybe they might be involved in some capacity this weekend. But I suppose we talk about the players they've missed, but like, gradually this Lockray team, if they can if they can continue to run this weekend, like, their squad is only going to get stronger and stronger as the year goes on.
Yeah, and I suppose that was probably the point I was trying to make, like that guys that were probably fringe players over the years have really stepped up. And then obviously you have a couple of younger players coming on, the Bobby Feeneys, the Cullen Cleans and all that. And obviously they're going to get a boost by that, by young players coming in. And but yeah, like, as you said, if they can get back, I don't know, three or four of those guys plus the squad they have, my God, what a squad of players that have it at their disposal.
Is it fair to say with Castlegar that we were probably wondering would they get to this stage, but then I suppose against Kilkenny they were really impressive, limited them to 1 point from play throughout the 60 minutes. But I suppose they've mixed the good and the bad throughout the championship so far.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. There's probably been a little bit up and down. There's sometimes you see them and you go, yeah, and then other times you see them and you go, not quite sure. But I suppose that the flip again is probably where's their format in terms of how good were Castlegar or how bad were Kilkenard, and let's be honest, it was a poor game, a very one-sided game. Um, but yeah, they'll be happy. Do you know what I mean? They're back in it. They're a top eight team straight away, back in again. And I'm not quite sure what's the story with Greg Thomas. If Greg Thomas and Killian Callan can get back in with both of their injuries, if they can get back in, it'll be obviously a huge boost for Castlegar. But for Castlegar to be back in a quarterfinal would be brilliant. They'll be delighted with that. And they won't feel Lockray one bit whatsoever. And again, this is making it a really good championship game as well.
Is it a success for Castlegar now? Because in previous years they've missed out on the knockout stages, but as you mentioned there, they're in a quarterfinal this year. They got to one last year. Like that's back-to-back quarterfinals in 2 years in a row.
Yeah, it is. It probably is. But look, when you're in a quarterfinal, you want to go another step, don't you? Yeah, you want
Yeah.
like when they're having their team meeting this week, they're going to say, yeah, I want to get back to a semi-final, a county semi-final. Like all these teams will say when they sit down this week, they'll say, oh, I want to be in Athenryan. The biggest day of the year is county semi-final day. They just all clubs will want that when they sit down. That's all these eight teams will say, yeah, let's be back here in 2 weeks, back in the semi-final, full house in Athenry. That's where they'll want to be. So Castlegar won't be happy just to get to a quarterfinal. Absolutely not. So they'll be saying, no, let's one more step, one more 60 minutes, and let's get back to a semi final.
On Castlegar there, you mentioned Craig. They missed Craig the last. They missed Jer Farrer in the second round against Sarsfields. Is it for them that they quite simply need both of those players on the pitch at the same time?
I think so. Yeah, I think if you have both, I think you have a great chance. Obviously, Greg, puck out option, goal scorer, backup free taker, Jer Farrer. Sure, like we can't say any more good about Jer Farrer, can we? Like he's just been brilliant again this year. I have to say, he's just been absolutely outstanding. If they could get both of them on the field, it would be a huge boost. And I will add in Killian Callan there. I think he's a good player. He brings a lot to the table for them as well. But yeah, that's probably where they're at. I'd say they'd love to get the two of them back and two of them back up front.
How do you plan for Jer Farrer at club level?
Yeah, sure, you just got to man mark him, Paul, don't you? Yeah, you just got to man mark him. Yeah, he's brilliant. I've been thinking about him the last couple of weeks. Like, and I suppose over the years we've had some brilliant club players, and I've gone back through, Joe Cooney, Eugene Clunan, Ollie Canning, Joe, David Burke, Conor Cooney, etc. But like, Ger Farrer has to be in the conversation. Like, yeah, I know you'll tell me the other guys have county championship medals and all that, but his longevity, his skill level, his sportsmanship as well is probably something people don't talk about. Like he's just a brilliant sportsman. And to see him do it day in, day out, free taking, sideline, running the attack, encouraging young players on the field. Um, and obviously his longevity in the game, it's testament to the bloke. So what a player he's been over 20 years now. Like it's remarkable, yeah, and credit to him, yeah.
It's not like he's slowing down either
No,
with his all round game is just being
yeah.
like he still does everything.
Yeah, and I suppose it probably just shows. I suppose I don't know the chap, but it probably shows how smart he is as well. He obviously is a brilliant hurling brain. How he can get around the field and how he can look after his body as well. So no credit to him. He's been absolutely outstanding again this year. The scores he's putting up, look at it's been unbelievable. Yeah.
Just on Lockray, because obviously Clonlara now have been dumped out of the championship down in Clare, but John Conlon's obviously involved. How big do you think that is to obviously get an All Ireland winner like John Conlon now involved with your club?
It should be brilliant. Yeah, he's obviously very well regarded, and look, Lockray are a very well coached team. But to get John Conlon in the mix there as well, and I know he does a lot of stuff with the players individually, and that it would be brilliant. Yeah, of course, it'd be brilliant. And anyone that ever spoke of John Conlon couldn't speak highly enough of the chap. So, yeah, to get someone like him to being around the group and bringing his experience, not just from intercounty level as well. Like he's obviously done it with his club, and sometimes we kind of look at intercounty the whole time and think they have all the answers, but like he's won his county championship with his club, and to bring that back and to add that know-how and experience into Lockray, yeah, look at it, it's only got to help, hasn't it?
On this game, Are we giving the nod here to Lockray just because they've shown more consistency throughout their games than Castlegar have?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably a good way of summing it up. Yeah, I think puck outs for and puck outs against. I think Lockray have been excellent on their own puck out. I'd say if you ran a stat on all the games in terms of return off their own puck out, I'd say Lockray would be ahead. Um, they're very innovative on their own puck out, which will cause every team problem. And then on the flip of that, defending puck outs have been excellent as well. But yeah, I think the form of Tiernan at 11, I think the form of Shane Morgan at 6, adding in as well his long range free taking, which will be that'll get more and more important as the I suppose as the year gets a little bit thinner as you go through the championship. But I think adding in that, I think I'd probably given a tip to Lockray in this one.
It is something like they're not going to say it openly in this game to play, but like when everything's being talked about with Turlock and Thomas is like if they get through this weekend, they're going to really start rubbing those hands together.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely 100%. Yeah. And I suppose they were probably hoping the longer this goes on, the more players are going to get back. I know that sounds a very loose comment, but it is unfortunately that they're going to get guys back on the field. But yeah, the squad depth for Lockray is very very strong.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. I just think Lockray, as we mentioned there, they've shown more throughout the championship. If we look at the one on Saturday, then 4:15, Sarsfields, Cappy. Sarsfields obviously coming in as one of the group winners. Cappy have really battled back well to get to the last eight, obviously here. Sarsfields luck in one sense, I suppose, against Ormore Mary, the way they squeezed through that, but as in all those three games, they've shown something different to win those games.
Have, and I think the other side of that as well is I think there's probably different players have stood up at different stages. Like you saw the John Cooney flick the last day. Hopefully Joe Cooney be back the next day for them. But I think if you go through it, like Paddy McCorrick has been really good in certain games. The two Dunos have been really good in certain games. Kevin Cooney is nailed on his free taking. So to for them to get over the line in the games, like we're not talking about one player here. Like we're talking a different player in different games, which is brilliant, and I'm sure that's something that's going to be very satisfying to the Sarsfields management. But they're in a good place. Yeah, they're in a good place. I think word on the ground is that Joe Coney will be back, which would be a big plus for them. Obviously, Darren remains out. Darren Morrissey remains out, and I'm not quite sure on Darren Murphy, but to have Joe back will be a big plus for them. Yeah, it'll be just interesting, I suppose, where they'll play him. I suppose after that, then yeah.
They're the one squad, like they've got a huge bounce off the like 20 success. I know they didn't win that one against Turlock, but even it might have been more of success. The influence some of those players have made at senior level.
It is, and again, their junior A team are in the county semi final the weekend as well. So I've actually saw them as well, and there's definitely three, four, five players that you could pluck straight off that junior A team and play senior hurling. They're definite senior hurlers. So again, and probably just come back to the Lockray comment as well in terms of the Sarsfields depth from their twenties to the junior A team to their senior team has been has been very strong, has been very strong. And again, it looks like they're going to get stronger because they're going to get probably more bodies back on the field as well.
I suppose with Kappy, we thought they were in trouble after the Turlock game, but once again they've defied odds and they've took a blow throughout the year, but they've got back to the last eight, similar to last year.
Yeah, but I suppose look, that's probably testament to them as well, and probably testament to the club that they're probably finding a way. Like the start of the year didn't obviously go well for them, but they've they'll be really happy where they're going to come into this game because all of a sudden Liam Collins is after finding his form and he wouldn't have been happy the way he was going early on in the year, but he was really good the last day. Is Niall Collins is obviously has there been a better player in the club championship this year? He's right up there. I thought he'd been brilliant any day I saw him. The two Garveys at the back, I thought have been brilliant. I think they've been excellent all year, even when they were probably not at their best early on in the year. I thought the two of them have been brilliant. So yeah, they're coming in and like again, where are teams at? But they're coming in and definitely an upswing coming into this game. All of a sudden getting players back. A couple of younger players have really bedded in. Campbell, Lewis Coughlin, these guys have really bedded in. Um, they're going to come in on a lovely way, put up a lovely score the last day. They'll bounce into training this week. Local derby with Sarsfields. Yeah, they're coming into it in a lovely way to pitch up to quarter final. Absolutely.
Just on Liam, because obviously when he was involved with Galway with GVT, he really struggled with injury. But how much, like, that's obviously so challenging for him too. He's still only such a young player, and I've no doubt he was trying desperately to get fit all year.
Yeah, it was. It was just one of those. He just picked up kind of little knock after knock and muscular injury, and he's obviously spent a lot of time in the gym and trying to get himself a little bit bigger as well. But it was yeah, look at for a young player to be picking up injuries and just I suppose not being able to shake them and not being able to get out in the field and I suppose to put your best foot forward. I would look, it was hugely frustrating for him. Yeah, but thankfully he's back now and he's back and he's injury free, touch wood, and I think we'll all be excited for him to go and watch the game the weekend and to see again to see him kick on even further because he's a prodigious talent. He's what he can do in terms of his movement and his striking. Um, yeah, he's Liam Collins, the top player. Yeah.
When you talk about these two teams, it's nearly funny in one way because you're saying what Liam Collins probably needs now is games, and it's the same thing with Kevin Cooney. What he needs is games because he just had such a frustrating year as well.
Yeah, yeah, but I suppose Kevin has played all like he's come back from the start of the club. He's played. Liam has been probably carrying a knock, but now he's probably injury free. So yeah, both of them I suppose frustrating year with Galway, but now they're probably gone back in with their clubs, and that's probably a new release for them as well to go back in with the clubs and play with their mates again. Um, Kevin has gone about his business really well. He's obviously had a really tough year with Galway with the hamstring injury, but it looks like it's well behind him now, yeah. And yeah, I'm probably expecting a big game from Kevin Cooney the weekend as well.
How do you see some of the matchups here? Because obviously, it's just when you look at some of the forward lines, it's what gets you excited straight away.
Oh, completely. Like I suppose who picks up does Declan Cronin go to Liam Collins or yeah, or sorry, does Liam Collins go to Niall Quinn, for example? Do you know what I mean? It's there's just so many. Who picks up John Cooney? Who picks up Kevin Cooney? Um, yeah, there's just so many matchups in this one. Again, I suppose that's probably that's what's going to be the focus of training this week in terms of management meetings and that, and who follows who and to what extent, I suppose as well. But there's some really good intriguing matchups there as well.
Is it a challenge for Kappy with some of their forwards, I suppose, when the weather gets difficult now? Because we know with Ja, Niall, and Liam, they've three unbelievable forwards who would shoot the lights out, but it can be really, when the weather gets more difficult, it can be really challenging, I suppose, maybe to play the game they want to play.
Yeah, it can be, but I suppose that the three of them are, I suppose, obviously very quick, very elusive players. Obviously, Niall is your free taker. It is, but like any time you see them is like if you saw them the last day. I don't know if you see the game the last day, but like the ball, it's obviously something they've worked on very well in training in terms of delivery of the ball into the forwards. That like you could see, obviously, you want you running at defenders and ball into space and then taking on players, and it worked a treat. So they'll be trying to keep doing that and keep implementing that. Um, but yeah, and I think they have a couple other mix of players as well. Obviously, you see James Egan coming off the bench a good bit for them and that as well. And I'd say puck out return has been still good from them as well. So they'll be happy enough with their balance and they'll be keep working on getting good ball into the three guys inside because look at they're obviously they're three match winners for them.
We talked there about Sarsfields is like the young talent coming through, but it's even still the, I suppose you can nearly call them the older statesmen in the team now, but the Kevin Hines, the Niall Quinns, the
Yeah.
Kieran Dolans and goals, like they've obviously been crucial for these young lads too.
Yeah, and look, those guys that you mentioned, they're on the go, and you add in Joe and a few more as well. Like back in when they won the county final at 15, I was involved in Cropwell. Like they were playing and playing well at that stage, you know. So again, we spoke earlier about Jer Farrer's longevity, but the longevity of these guys and Kevin Hines and Joe and Niall Quinn and Kieran Dole and these guys, yeah, I suppose you can only tip your hat to them in terms of their service they've given to their club. Um, and they're obviously still inputting so much towards their team. Do you know, like obviously goalkeeper, fullback, centre back, potentially midfielder there. Do you know, so um, yeah, you can only tip your hat into them in terms of the longevity they've given to their club.
How do you see this one going, Kevin?
Yeah, look, I've probably had a slight fancy for Sarsfields all year, so yeah, I'm going to lean towards Sarsfields. Yeah, I like the mix of their team. I like the balance of their team. Um, I think I think Kappy's offensively will cause them a bit of could cause them a bit of bother, but yeah, I'll give a sneak win here to Sarsfields.
It does feel like with those last two quarterfinals that the majority, even of people looking at this game, they would tip Sarsfields and Lockray for those two games. But if we come to the first quarterfinal of the weekend, Tommy Larkins, Clarenbridge, it's nearly like Turlock Thomas's. Very hard one to call.
It is, yeah. It looks like a very, I suppose, how could you put it, nearly a balanced draw there in this one. Like yeah, the two like Tommy Larkins have been really impressive throughout the group stage, I suppose, if you like. Um, like I suppose the one thing I suppose this year is their spreader scorers has been really good. Like if you any day you look at them playing, you're looking at 8, 9, 10 scores in some of their games, which I think maybe historically they probably hadn't that. They're probably an over reliance on Jason Flynn. But this year, in terms of Duggan, Daniels, Connor Slattery's obviously back, Ronan Murphy's back. Their spread of scores have been it's been really impressive. I'd say maybe they're the second highest scores in the championship. They've been really good. Um, so yeah, and they've navigated their way really well through the championship. And they're obviously just pitching up in a quarterfinal in really good spirits now, I'd imagine.
They did some of this too without Kevin McHugh and Darren Duggan.
100%, yeah. And you know, I think Kevin McHugh, he's been obviously a stalwart and centre back for them. Obviously played the last day, and look at he's going to be very important from this weekend because you're probably going to ask about matchups, like, and he's going to match up with Gavin Lee if he's at 6 and Gavin is at 11. So yeah, they need Kevin back and they need him in fully fit as well. But yeah, obviously played the last day and played well. So but you're right, Chad. Again, we're probably repeating ourselves a little bit again, but we're probably talking a lot of squad depth again, and we're probably talking about squad depth on both of these two teams. But in Tommy Larkins, they're getting their injury sorted and getting these guys back. Connor Slattery, Rona Murphy, Jason, all these guys back that obviously they didn't have last year. Um, all of a sudden, they look a completely different team, you know. So but offensively, I think they've been really good. If you're getting in a club side, if you're getting 8, 9, 10 scores every day consistently throughout the championship, that's something that I'm sure Niall Kelly and the guys up there are really happy with.
And you've talked about some of the players there that got back. Ronan Murphy he was sensational in that win over Thomas's. Even Colin Flynn, who's came back from travelling this year too, has really anchored things too around the defence.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and just go back to their offensively. They seem to be playing with a very kind of a freedom about the way they're playing, and there's obviously brilliant movement. Jason obviously has a free role, and he's jumping around into different positions to cause the opposition bother. But it's probably the freedom and they're jumping into different little pockets of around the 6 forward positions. And yeah, to get all those players back, and you add in a Colin Flynn, because a few of the players we mentioned there are younger players, and like to have a Colin Flynn around your dressing room, and on championship days or even leading up to quarterfinal this weekend, as we brilliant. I'm sure he's having little words of advice to different players and that kind of thing, and have an experienced head, no more so than Kevin McHugh. That'd be brilliant for the younger players.
There was a thing too after the Bet Thomas's. There was an expectation to, I suppose, follow up that result, and the manner they did it against Clonmacnoise, because obviously when you beat the All Ireland champions unexpectedly, pressure does come with that.
100%, but yeah, and you're right. They came in and the blue climber did away. Let's be honest, like they did, and put up a big score again, and again. I can't emphasize that enough. A big spread of scores. So they've been, I suppose, very professionally gone about their business. I know they've been busy on the challenge game circuit as well. So again, how they've managed the 4 weeks to the weekend. Um, that's probably the little worry that where they at would have prepared the game a couple of weeks ago. Look, we don't have the answer to that now. We'll probably have the answer to that next week.
On their opponents, Clarenbridge, at the start of the year, they looked like the form team in the county who were really going at a canter. Then against Lockray, there was a few, I suppose, doubts over the way Clarenbridge were opened up down through the centre. But then against Aradrahan, definitely they looked to defensively looked and played with more protection.
Yeah, they did. I suppose Dylan Dunn goes back in six. Oisin Salmon goes to the inside back line. He goes flat cornerback. TJ plays three. Dylan Duggan goes six. Sean Kilduff comes back into the middle of the field. So, um, yeah, I'd say they'll probably be a little bit happier in terms of the balance of their team. And I think all those guys that I've mentioned played really well. Um, so yeah, like again, they probably would. Yeah, like, going back to the Lockray game, like their own puck out obviously malfunctioned that day, and Lockray mined a lot of scores out of it. So that's something that they'll be worried. And then on the flip of that, Lockray's own puck out, they caused them endless trouble on their own puck out as well. So you could see it very obvious the last year that Lockray or Clarenbridge wanted to hit mid-range puck outs. It was very obvious they wanted to hit 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So look, I'm sure Tommy Larkins have that well watched, and they were trying to shut that down. But yeah, it is an intriguing battle. And again, looking at just jotting down some matchups, like does Oisin Salmon go to Jason Flynn? Who does Dylan Dunn pick up? Does he go to Ronan Murphy? Will he try and hold six, or will he try and track Ronan Murphy? Kevin McHugh, Gavin Lee, as we mentioned. Does Carl Tui go to Evan Island? So again, there's probably three or four matchups on either side that is probably going to have a big bearing on the game.
You mentioned there Clarenbridge's puck out, and it was something I noticed too against Lockray. Maybe Lockray had an advantage on ball winners, and we see Keane Salmon got a few minutes the last day.
Mm.
Do you think that that's someone David Ford now will be thinking about, because it's crucial as this championship goes on to get those bigger players and an outlet to have at wing forward?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. Look, it was very obvious that they wanted to hit midfield and half back line the last day. It was very obvious. But um, yeah, look, what you do with ball winners. Obviously, of course, you've got ball winners in terms of Gavin Lee, Mikey Daly. They're really good ball winners. Liam Means the far side, really good player as well, obviously. But yeah, it was, and it was interesting that both Fela McCann and Keen Salmon both come on, two experienced players. So yeah, look, will Keen Salmon start the weekend? Look, we don't know, but if he doesn't, I'm sure you're going to see both of them coming off the bench at some stage.
Gavin Lee, is he the youngest hurler you've seen progress most in Galway circles over the last year?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, in terms of his, um, I suppose in terms of everything, really. To be honest with you, in terms of his obviously his physique, his hurling, everything. He's progressed brilliantly. Like he's probably, as I say to people, he's probably a 3 year apprenticeship done with Galway, and that's probably what you're seeing with younger players, that they're probably in with intercounty teams now 2, 3, and 4 years, and then they make the breakthrough. But I suppose Gavin did it probably in 3 years in terms of he two done, and he obviously got a lot of game time this year. But look, he's a smashing player, he's a smashing young fella as well. Obviously great time from, but yeah, his progression this year, I suppose, right throughout the year from Fitzgibbon to Lee to Championship back to his club. He's a lot of minutes played this year, to be straight with you, but he's been really good, yeah, and he's a very mature young fella, and he's
He
had a
looks fearless.
yeah, and he's a smashing attitude and great young fella. But yeah, I think I'm excited for him, to be honest with you. I'm excited from the years to come, because I think he's going to be a top player for Galway.
What kind of game do you think we can expect from Larkins and the Bridge?
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. I think both teams are going to try and impose themselves in the game in terms of, you know, Tommy Lark is going to have massive movement, particularly up front, midfield, up the way. They're going to just try and drag everybody around. The challenge for Clarenbridge is are they going to go zone or mark? Um, because against Lockray, they were betwixt and between a little bit. Um, so that's going to be the challenge for them offensively. Um, and then obviously Clarenbridge, look at it, it was very obvious that they were trying to leave as much space inside for Joshua Ryan and Evan Island. So I suppose the challenge, the flip of that then is the challenge for Tommy Larkins is their half back line going to hold or follow? Because the distance between Joshua Ryan, Evan Island, and his half forward line the last day was massive. So obviously that's something that Tommy Larkins can't allow happen as well. So I suppose they're probably the two ends of the field. Um, that's going to be the challenge in terms of particular half-back line. Will they follow? Will they try and play somewhat zonal? Um, and that's going to be the challenging piece, because what you don't want is a massive gap between your half-back line and your full-back line. Because what you do have on both sets of sides, on both sets of teams here, you have very strong inside forwards, and you've goal threats there as well.
Were you giving the nod to end this one, Kevin?
Um, I'd probably give the nod to Clarenbridge. Um, yeah, I'm just thinking maybe the blip they had against Lockray might just came at a good time for them in terms of, I thought they were professional in the way they went about their business the last day, and they have just so many players as well. Like, you know what I mean? If you go back over the last 10 years in terms of many minors they've won and many 20s they've won, how many players they've given to Galway at that level and at senior level. There's just so many hurlers. So yeah, I think Clarenbridge might just sneak it. Wouldn't rule out a draw on this one either, but I think Clarenbridge might just sneak it.
Yeah, this one definitely feels like it's gonna go down to the wire. On the relegation final on Saturday at half one, Gort, Mulla and New Inn. Both teams so close to going to the knockouts. We talk about maybe one-sided preliminary quarterfinals, but it is crazy to think that one of these teams had a foot basically in the preliminary quarterfinals and now they're in a relegation final.
Yeah, it's just so difficult. It just shows how thin the margins are, doesn't it? And I'm sure there was such a downer in both clubs after it, and trying to get yourself up and get back into the pitch and get back into training and try and dig yourself out of it. That's probably the challenge for both sets of players and management. But yeah, you're right. Look, the line is just so thin in this thing, and then next thing, all of a sudden, you're out of the championship, and then sticking you're scrambling. You don't want to get relegated. So I'm sure both teams will be going really hard to stay up because nobody wants to go down a level, do they?
It is the thing, it's something I've emphasized all year. Mulla, like they work so hard to come up, like to go straight back
Yeah, and
down.
look, we all saw the senior B games. I remember going to the two finals or the replayed final last year. They were brilliant games, and you saw what it meant to the team, what it meant to the club, what it meant to the supporters. Um, and then here we are 12 months later, and it's 50-50 game. Like, it's a very hard game to call, obviously. So it is, yeah, it's going to be heartbreaking if they were to go down after a brilliant year last year and putting a cup on the table. To be heartbreaking for them to go back down.
And there's been so much positives too. Then even when you talk about Gorge, the way they've basically David Hoban has really, like, apart from maybe Craig Lally, Gavin Lally, Aidan Hillibert, and the few experienced players, he's really blooded a new team and that have
Yeah,
performed excellently in the last 2 years.
he's built a new team essentially, isn't he? Yeah, so it would be really hard. And like when you think when you go back to the Thomas's game, how they finished the game, how like you just hope a game like that wouldn't define their year. Do you know what I mean? That was when it's all over that they're not thinking back to that, and God forbid they're back in senior B or something. But look at that's championship hurling, isn't it? It can be ruthless, can't it?
It's something both kind of clubs really have to park now and park everything that's happened in the past. Like it's just truly about this Saturday for both of them.
It is, and it's just about digging out a result this weekend, isn't it? Like, and I'm sure they'll settle for a 1 point win at any win, a low scoring game, a 1 point win, and just dig it out, and that's it for them. But and the flip of that, you don't want to be in a 1 point loss and staring into senior B next year because it's I'm sure you'll touch on the senior B. It's hard to get up out of senior B. You spoke about Mully earlier. It's hard, and watching some of the senior B games the last couple of weeks, it's a very it's ultra competitive down there, isn't it? And you don't want to go down there and get stuck in a dogfight and try and get yourself back up again.
Who do you see surviving in senior?
Um, I maybe give a slight sneak to Gort. Um, to be truthfully, I probably saw more of their games to be honest with you than Mulia, so I think Gort might just stick it out.
If we do look at Senior B, Kevin, on Saturday, the Senior B relegation final takes place at the same time in Cairnmore. Haskerphone at Beha. I know on the podcast throughout the year, a lot of people who've come on, we were kind of writing off Beha, but it was probably a silly thing to do. They've defied the odds once again, even when it looked like the game was just going away from them the last day by 1 point, they come up trumps again.
Yeah, it was funny. I wasn't at the game, but I was following it on what's the score, and it was like if you're watching it for the last 10, 12 minutes, it was best score, best score, best score. Like they would just seem to be steamrolling. I actually thought they were going to win it at one stage. I just thought, but look, I just have huge admiration for them. I just think how with a limited pool of players in terms of numbers, how they do it year in year out. I have the height of admiration for them, to be honest with you. Yeah. Um, yeah, and would you bet against them this weekend either? yeah, it's credit to them, to be honest with you. It looked like the game the last day was gone for them, but as I said, they dug it out there within the last 10 minutes to obviously to eke out a draw.
It's the thing, Bear is so used to this, and Haskell kind of be scratching their head after going all the way to Senior B final last year.
Yeah, and that's just it, isn't it? That they and maybe that's probably, maybe it could be, is it advantage better now? I'm not so sure. Do you know that like they're used to this, aren't they? They used to being in these really tight battles down to the last few. Um, and Hask earned, I suppose, the last number of years they've won an intermediate, they've been senior B finals. You know what I mean? So they've probably been on the other end of that. So um, tricky game to call now. Tricky game to call. Probably come down to a couple of frees here and there. It could be free taken. It's a tricky game to call, yeah. But yeah, you wouldn't rule out behind this one now either.
Is this game where the quality of Pork and Cahill could be the difference?
100%, yeah. I suppose particularly maybe Cahill in terms of an offensive player. If Cahill could come in and get you 4 or 5 scores, would it go a long way winning a game? It probably could, but I suppose the counter argument of that is if Adrian Dewey pitches up at wing forward, can he get you 3, 4, 5 scores as well? So, but yeah, Cahill, you'd be thinking could again, I suppose fitness permitting that he could be the difference on the day. Yeah.
Who do you think will retain the status there in this replay?
I'm probably going to eat my words a little bit. Now, I think Haskell might just have enough. I think they might just have enough. Yeah. And particularly with, as you said, if Carl has a good day. Yeah.
The semi-finals then in the Senior B Championship, there's three games. There's the relegation final and the two semi-finals. Uh, half two, Lee Mellows, Athenry and Duggan Peg. Athenry have already beaten Mellows in the group stage, so it'll be interesting to see can they beat them twice or do Mellows come back here and get a bit of revenge. From the outset, I would have predicted both of these teams to be in the Senior B final, but they've meeting a game earlier.
Yeah. Two really good games. Yeah. I saw Meadows play Pierce's, and I thought they were absolutely outstanding in the first half. They were maybe within maybe 9, 10 points up. They were brilliant. Sean Morrissey was brilliant. Ty Karen was brilliant. Jack Ford was brilliant. And then the second half, the game just turned. Pierce actually could have won the game down the home straight if they were probably unlucky enough. But yeah, Meadows showed glimpses in the first half of just brilliant in the second half. So that'll be a little bit of a worry that where really are they at. Um, Athenry, obviously they've had a really positive year up to now. Again, I hear they've been busy on the challenge game circuit as well, but they it's a tricky game to call. Obviously, there's a little bit of history there. They should have played each other already. And sometimes in this, it's not too long ago that they played each other. Can you beat the same team again and that kind of thing? So it's going to be a hard one to call. Um, Meadows got a bit of a wake up call the last did in the second half. They wouldn't have been happy with their second half. Delighted with the first half, wouldn't be happy with their second half. The flip of that, Athenry are playing really really nice brand of hurling. Obviously blooded a lot of younger players again this year. Um, Making's a good game. Meadows very physical side. Um, Athenry kind of maybe a little bit lighter of a side. But yeah, it's an intriguing game, that one.
Thing is, that's right. Like they haven't been they've blitzed everyone really in the group stages. Like they've had too much for Port Tumnam. I think won out comfortably enough in the end against Mellows. They've won comfortably enough. So they've taken care of everyone that's been in front of them this year.
Have and what they have is they're probably two marquee forwards in Keane Burke and Ronan Hardiman, and both of them have put up massive scores throughout the year. Like Ronan Hardiman's taking in 3, 4, 5 scores a game. Keane Burke has been really good on the frees. Jason Rabbit obviously comes back into the team. He's a big plus. Obviously the two lawlesses. So I think I'd be happy in terms of the scoring rate. And they'll need that again this weekend. But they've been hugely impressive.
On Mellows since that game, they've come through and they're on a bit of a winning run now. And they've gradually, as you talked, they've got Sean Morrissey back on the pitch. They've got Adrian Morrissey. It's actually a lot of these players that I suppose won that county title that are still so crucial to them.
100%, yeah, yeah, and look at that. They've probably repositioned a few of them as well in terms of like Sean Morrissey's playing seven, Jack Hastings is playing the inside line, fullback line now. You know where he has been more successful, kind of further up the field. Ty Garden playing a lot of the game as, wing forward, Jack Ford at 11. So yeah, you're right. It's like watching the game the last day. Look, we would have, when I was with Thomas, we'd have beaten Mellows in those couple of finals, and it's a lot of the same players. It really is a lot of the same players still there. Um, but yeah, very very seasoned outfit. Obviously added in a couple of younger players. Connor Hines the last couple of years has obviously come into it. Ed O'Reilly at centre back has played well in the games I've seen, and Louis D the goalie has been really good in a few games I saw as well. So um, they've a nice blend. Yeah, Sliema Mellows have a nice blend between, I suppose, a lot of the guys that have, as you said, have a county medal, and some of the guys maybe starting out in their career.
And who do you see coming out on top in this semi-final?
I think maybe experience wise, Mellows might just sneak it in this one. Um, yeah, I just think again that they have a couple of really nice forwards in terms of Jack Ford, Ty Cairn, Connor Hines. They might just get the job done. Yeah.
The other semi-final, Balindrine and Portumna are going to be licking their lips because both of these clubs see it as an opportunity to get to a county final.
100%, yeah. Portum of the last I saw them playing Killarney Leitrim, and even though Killarney Leitrim went in maybe a point or two up at halftime, whatever, it was a tight enough game, but you could just sense that they were nearly going to win the game, if that makes any sense. That the experience and the know-how was going to just get it done for them. Um, yeah, yeah, they're playing a really nice brand of hurling. They've obviously given a lot of game time to a lot of the younger players again, and yeah, they'll be licking their lips the way. And the flip of that, I happened to bump into a couple of the Balindrigan management at that game, and they were there just watching the games. Like, it's probably a little bit unusual for them to be off for the 4 week block as well, and they were there just checking out the games and that. But yeah, it'll be they'll be delighted. Both of those teams will say, yeah, we have a right chance here of getting a senior B final, and I don't think there's going to be. I don't think there's people are probably going to say Portumna in a lot of these cases, but Ballinderry have been really good, like, and maybe they haven't been probably getting the credit around the county for it. They've been really impressive early on in the championship, and putting up really good scores. Like Luke Prendergast has been a proper player for them. Kevin Cohn has been a proper player for them. Free take and all of that. They've blooded on more a couple of those under 20 minor and under 20 players that they've had as well. So yeah, I wouldn't rule out Ballinderine. I'm going to tip Portumna, but I wouldn't rule out Ballinderine in this one. But because I don't need to get the credit they deserved early on there, the way they went about their business and got the results. Um, and as I said, by all accounts, they've trained well and prepped well. I know the guy that's coaching the team, and they, they'll come in with a really good fight chance in this one.
Just on Ballindraine, they've obviously only come up from intermediate first year in Senior B, and they've been extraordinary. Topped Group One straight into semi-final, as you mentioned. Do you think that's showing that maybe the jump from intermediate to Senior B isn't as big?
Yeah, possibly. But I remember watching Ballinderine last year at quarterfinal stage, and I was just really impressed with them. I just thought about their physicality, their want, their desire. I thought they were really good, and I think maybe people last year were kind of saying from the outset that Teen Aberdeen's name was on the cup. But I just saw Ballinderine a couple of times. And I just said, remember, I can't remember even who they played in the quarterfinal. They went about the business very professionally, and I thought that again. You talk about the mix. I probably talk about the mix a lot in terms of the old and the older players and the younger players. I thought they had a lovely balance to their team, and yeah, a couple of those younger players that we mentioned earlier, they've really looked like they've really kicked on as well. Um, and yeah, they're not going to fear Portum on the weekend. No, absolutely not.
On Portumna, it's fantastic to see as well, like that it hasn't really affected them from getting relegated from senior hurling last year. That they've really went about it this year and to get straight back up.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, and I suppose maybe credit to Sean Tracy going back in there as well. Like, obviously he top
Wasn't an
class.
easy position to come back into either.
No, it wasn't, and like he finished up with Clare, and he's a brilliant coach, and bumped into him a couple of times when we were with Call. He's a brilliant coach as well, and for him to go back, credit to him, like he went back to his club, he's built a new team. His Martin Dolphin is back, Ronan O'Mara is back. All the guys are back, and they're all playing really well. And some younger players, Andrew Canning, and these guys have stepped up as well, and um obviously lost Dickie McLaughlin through the injury then, and he's just coming back, and expecting a big game from him the weekend, by the way. But yeah, if credit to him for coming back and taking on his own club and to put himself into the position to get back into a final. So
So that's a Portona Mellows final, you see.
I think so. Yeah, I think so for me. Yeah.
If we look then at the intermediate, but actually before I look at the intermediate, is it still Thomas's to win the Tom Callanan Cup for you this year?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
They're still your favourites to
Yeah.
break the record.
Yeah. For seven.
And on the senior B, who do you think will end up winning that Mellows or Portumna?
I think I'll give it to Mellows.
Mellows. So if we look then at the intermediate quarterfinals on Saturday, Meath Aircourt, Turlock Moor. This is an intriguing one because Meath Aircourt, we don't know John Fleming's availability because in that last group game he was down for a
Yeah.
long period of time and he's crucial to them. And they were mixed throughout the group, but they really finished it strongly then. And then with Turlock, like you talked about some of the under 20s that
Yeah.
are in this team.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this could be a really close game. I do think Milligan will win it, but I think it's going to be a close game. I think the availability of Cup Milligan potentially might have an injury or two, but um, yeah, they still have an awful lot of good hurlers. Lee McDermott, Erner, these guys, they've still obviously the Flemings. Even though, as you said, we're not sure of John's availability, but yeah, this should be a good game of hurling. Yeah, I think Aircourt might just shade it.
With that Aircourt, they probably will be disappointed in the last few years the way they have performed even at the knockout stage. I know last year when they got to Tina, like they're well beaten in the semi.
Yeah, but look, I suppose if you did a straw poll around who do you think is going to win intermediate every year, I think Lima or Aircourt are going to be in everyone's top maybe three, four, are they? And yeah, for whatever reason they haven't got it done, but like they've plenty of hurlers there, don't they? And yeah, I think they'll get it done the weekend. And obviously, if you get back into a semi final, look, at anything can happen.
It's the thing with Turlock too, they're gonna want to keep this like there's a serious feel good factor around the club when you consider it and to keep this
One hundred
going.
percent, and being in Duggan Park that night, the under 20 final, you could actually sense it. You could sense that, yeah, we're after putting an under 20 cup on the table. Um, we have a really strong intermediate team. These guys are going to backbone your intermediate team. We have a really strong senior squad. So, like, you could sense that even, there was a real sense, there was a real good vibe around. I'd imagine there's a real good vibe around the club. And why wouldn't they? When you think of all they've obviously won a couple of under 20s, intermediate team going really well. I'm sure training is going really well down there. So, yeah, like fair dues to everybody involved there.
In the other quarterfinal at half four, just down the road from Gort, in Kilbeganty, Teen Abbott and Irie Round. Teen Abbott and Irie, strong favourites again, it's safe to say, to win intermediate.
Yeah, strong favourite. Yeah, look, I'd say if we had this conversation last year, it was probably the same conversation. Um, they'll be disappointed they didn't get it done last year by all accounts. Look, but and look, I probably think they might have enough this weekend for Rahoon, who seem to have turned their season around. The Rahoon have started the year poorly, and they really have seemed to turn
Yeah,
their
two
season
and
around.
four.
Yeah, so they'll be quietly confident as well. But I think Tina, and again, I think they've built a good bit of depth in their squad as well. I think they might actually even be stronger than last year. Yeah,
That probably comes too from like Teen are playing intermediate and then their second team are competing in the knockout stages in junior A.
they did. Yeah, I think they were in quarter final stage, if I'm not mistaken. So again, they have, and I think um, that's obviously good to hear for the club perspective that they're obviously having loads of bodies training and all that. But yeah, I think Tina's squad is stronger than last year. Tina Aberdeen squad, and that'll help them going forward.
It's safe to say there, Aircourt and Teen Abbott and Irie are the strong two favourites, but when it comes to Sunday in the Intermediate Championship, this is where it gets intriguing. Like, uh, I was just following last Wednesday night, Crowell and Clymer,
Mm.
and there was 9 minutes injury time played. I don't know what they're supposed to be. There was, but on that game, then Clymer get that winner in injury time to squeeze through against Crowell, 1-9 to 11 points. Carramore are finally beginning to build on their underage success in the past. Like this is a real 50-50 one because Clymer are still good enough to compete, but they know they've got out of jail last week.
Yeah, but sometimes that can help too. Do you know what I mean? Yes, they did get out of jail, but they still won the game. They got their name in the hat. But they weren't. They'll tell you that themselves. They weren't brilliant that night, and Crotwell really put it up to them. And there was a little bit of controversy in the end, as you said. But yeah, and the flip of that, then Karen Moore, as you said, I suppose when they did win that minor back in, was it 2018? I think we were all expecting that team to come through. But maybe they are coming now. Like Conor Flaherty's been really good now for them. Ronan Killalay has been really, so some of that team are really starting to break through, and obviously Dickie Walsh over the team they'll be really well prepared. Um, Danny Cummins up front. I think there's a doubt over Kevin Killalay, but they they'll fancy it. Yeah, I think Karen Moore will really fancy that one. Um, Clymer, they're probably scrambling a little bit in terms of where is their format, really, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? They probably would have been expected to beat Crowell, and then just maybe fall over the line a little bit. They'll be, but look, they'll be trying to right the wrongs again the weekend, won't they? And they'll see it as a great chance to get back into a top four.
And who are you giving the nod to there?
I think Carmore might just sneak it, yeah.
In the other one, then that's obviously a double header. The Carmore Climber one's at half three in court, and before that, Ceylon and Kinvara at two. This is an interesting one too. Kinvara table toppers obviously unbeaten in the championship so far. Ceylon narrowly pipped by Carmore, but then come back to beat Abinock in the preliminary quarter final. Ceylon have been in the last two semi-finals. Kinvara haven't, so it's the form team versus an experienced team at this level.
I think so, yeah. I saw Kinvara a couple of times. I have to say, I've been really impressed with them. Some of the younger players. I think Dara Helbert's has been really good for them. Joshua Connor has been really good for them. Curtin the free taker has been really good for them. There's a couple of more guys there as well, that younger players that have really stood out for them. Mike Cummins is obviously doing a good coaching job with them there from Gort, and they look like a team that is playing with real confidence at the minute. And then, as you said, on the flip of that, then you have Ceylon, a very experienced team. Obviously, Joe Hession over the team, and Joe has obviously been in Kinvara, so he'll have a little bit of inside knowledge there. But yeah, I think Kinvara might just get it done on this one. Um, I just liked what I saw that day. Ceylon will get a bounce, obviously, to win the last day, but and it was a really good win the last day. But I think Kinvara might just sneak this one.
On the relegation then in final and intermediate at the weekend in New Inn at half one, Kiltormer, Kilbacon. It's both of these teams have just really struggled throughout the year. Is it advantage Kilbacon because Kiltormer have took some big hammerings this year?
I think so. Yeah. If you look at some of the scores they've conceded, they've been high. Um, yeah, but it's a tricky one. And I personally would probably it would be sad to see Kiltormer if they were to go
Mm,
down. Being such a brilliant club and given so many hurdles to Galway over the years,
I
back
know,
over the
yeah.
years. And
Damien
look at
Curley was on throughout the year. He was
yeah,
saying they lost eight players from last year.
yeah.
Just can't afford to lose that many players there.
Yeah, and and I'm sure without knowing, I'm sure Kilbegany might have lost a couple of players as well. But look at it, it's tough. I would personally wouldn't like to see you'd hate to see either team go down in this one. I'd have a soft spot for both of those teams, but it's a tricky one, yeah. But look at with Kiltarmer, with the scores they've been conceding, it's going to be a big ask to stay up. I'd probably have Kilbegany might just sneak this one.
Is it still Tina? You see winning it this year?
I think so, but I wouldn't rule out Kinvara. I like what I saw of them. Um, I think they're definitely on an upward swing, and I think they're on an upward curve. I think they're going about their business nice and quietly, and there's not too many people talking about them, which will be good. Um, and I think some of the players they're developing there. I think are getting better, and yeah, I've liked what I've seen them. But yeah, to me, yeah, if I was putting my tinner on anyone at the minute, it'd be probably Tina Visionary. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will agree there. So that's all we do time for on today's show. A huge amount of action to look forward to this week, but that's all we do time for today. Thanks a million to Kevin for coming on.